What would you do if you were worth billions but couldn't trust anyone with your heart? If every smile felt rehearsed? If every "I love you" sounded like a business pitch? This is the story of a man who vanished from a life most of us can only dream of and found something more valuable than any fortune he'd ever made. It's quiet now, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, but empty. The city sparkles outside my window like a promise. My name glows from a dozen buildings downtown, reflected in glass like a brand I can't escape. People say, I've changed the world. Funny how you can connect billions of people and still feel completely alone. I had dinner tonight with my board. Smiles, toasts, handshakes. They praised our growth, our AI breakthroughs, our projections for the next quarter. One of them joked that I'm not really human anymore, just pure innovation in motion. They meant it as a compliment, but it stung. Sometimes I wonder if anyone even sees me anymore. Me, not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the talking head with the perfect quote, just the man who hasn't slept through the night in weeks. The man who gave everything for this dream and now wonders if it cost too much. Sophia wanted a career. Isabel wanted reach. Mila wanted fame. Derek wanted money. Everyone wanted something. I used to think I was being paranoid, that it was just the cost of success. But when every hug feels like a negotiation, every date like an interview, and every friend like a transaction, maybe the paranoia is just clarity. I am surrounded by people but seen by no one. I think what I really want, what I've never had, is someone who sees the silence behind the speeches, who doesn't care about VeilNet or its stock price, who'd love me even if I was broke. Especially then, not because I'm hard to get, but because I'm worth keeping. I don't know if that kind of love exists, but I know one thing. If I ever find it, I'll give it everything I have. Until then, I'll keep building. Not for them, for the day she shows up, whoever she is. Ethan Vail was the golden boy of Silicon Valley. At just 33, he was the mind behind VeilNeta tech empire, connecting billions, revolutionizing AI and communication. Ethan Vail wasn't born with a silver spoon, but he was born curious. Raised in a modest suburb outside of Chicago, Ethan's childhood home had peeling paint, a leaky roof, and a dial-up connection that barely worked on good days. His father was a mechanic, his mother a public school librarian, and their love was steady, if not spoken often. Money was tight, but books were plenty, and that made all the difference. Ethan's fascination with technology sparked in 5th grade, on a cold January morning when his school finally got a donation of old desktop computers. They were slow, outdated, and half the keyboards were missing keys, but to Ethan, they were magic. One day, while the rest of his classmates played educational games, Ethan asked the teacher if he could try something different. He stayed behind during recess, poking around the system files and teaching himself basic commands. By the time he was 12, he had taught himself how to code in HTML and BASIC, using borrowed library books and clunky public computers. But the moment that truly changed everything came in middle school. A classmate named Jonah struggled with dyslexia. He was brilliant, but couldn't keep up with the fast-paced reading requirements. One day, Ethan built a rudimentary text-to-speech program on an old laptop just for Jonah. It was crude and glitchy, but it worked. Jonah cried the first time it read to him. Their teacher called Ethan a little wizard. That day, Ethan realized something profound. Tech wasn't just cool, it could change lives. In high school, Ethan built websites for local businesses for gas money, hacked his school's attendance system just to prove it wasn't secure, he confessed later, and started a tech blog that reached tens of thousands of readers before he turned 17. He got into Stanford on a full scholarship. But even at Stanford, surrounded by legacy kids and future CEOs, Ethan never forgot what got him there: a broken computer, a learning disabled friend, and a belief that tech should make life better, not just faster. That belief became the foundation of VeilNet. Because for Ethan, technology wasn't about fame or fortune, it was about access, about giving everyone a seat at the table, regardless of their zip code. And it all started in a classroom where the computers barely turned on, but his imagination never turned off. Ethan Vail had already changed the world with technology, but what truly elevated him in the eyes of millions was what he did after the code was written, after the software launched, and after the profits soared. He didn't just want to build smarter machines, he wanted to build a better world. Through the VeilNet Foundation, which he launched quietly in his 30th year, Ethan began a series of powerful, targeted initiatives that uplifted underserved communities, empowered youth, and redefined the impact of modern philanthropy. Veil Scholars Initiative, empowering the next generation. Its purpose was to provide full-ride scholarships to gifted but financially challenged students in tech, science, and social impact fields. Over 0 full scholarships awarded globally and growing. Covered tuition, accommodation, living stipends, and mentorship. Targeted students from war-torn regions, low-income inner-city schools, refugee camps, and indigenous communities. With this initiative, they were able to achieve much. A former street vendor from Lagos now runs her own clean energy startup in Kenya. A Syrian refugee student is now a lead AI researcher at a Boston lab. Native American scholars helped bring sustainable tech to reservations lacking clean water. Signature. Quote from Ethan, "Talent should never be a victim of circumstance. A kid in rural India with a dream deserves the same shot as a Stanford grad. Code Her Future, Women in STEM Sponsorship Program." Its focus was to address the gender gap in tech. It has funded coding bootcamps for over 75, 0 girls in 35 countries, provided laptops, internet access, and direct placement into tech internships, partnered with organizations like Girls Who Code, UN Women, and local female-led startups. With this program, they were able to achieve much. A group of graduates built an app for tracking domestic violence cases anonymously, now used in 7 African nations. Ethan personally mentored a group of girls from rural Peru who built a disaster alert app now used by their government. Digital Tomorrow Schools, reviving education with tech. Its mission was to bring digital infrastructure to underfunded public schools. The impact was clear, transformed over 500 schools in poor urban and rural regions by donating smartboards, solar-powered laptops, free broadband for life, VR learning labs for science and geography, trained 50 0+ teachers to integrate AI tools into classrooms. Slogan, "If you can imagine it, you should be able to learn it." In South Africa, dropout rates dropped by 40% after VeilNet digital classrooms launched in high-risk districts. The Human First Grants, non-profit sponsorships. Annual grant fund, 100 million. Beneficiaries include organizations supporting mental health in tech workers, such as Mindwell, programs for reformed ex-convicts re-entering society with tech training, rural medical centers in Southeast Asia now connected with AI-assisted diagnostics via VeilNet tools, high-profile collaboration, partnered with WHO to launch AI for Health, an initiative enabling real-time disease detection using mobile data in low-infrastructure countries. The Veil Fellowship, Social Innovators Incubator. Purpose: fund and mentor young changemakers and founders working on social justice, climate tech, and health equity. Support includes 250, 0 in seed funding, global networking retreats, access to VeilNet Labs' engineers and tools. 78% of fellows launch sustainable ventures within a year. A blind coder from Pakistan developed an accessibility platform now used by major operating systems. Ethan Veil's approach to philanthropy. He believed in scalable kindness, the idea that compassion, when paired with innovation, could ripple across millions. He didn't just write checks, he visited slums, sat in schoolrooms, listened to students, and walked through disaster-struck villages. He made empathy part of the algorithm. Ethan Veil didn't just build the world's smartest network, she built bridges of opportunity that continue to lift generations. His legacy wasn't just measured in lines of code or market shares, but in children learning by candlelight, who now lead by spotlight. But behind the flash of paparazzi cameras, behind the headlines and the billion-dollar contracts, lived a man suffocating in his own success. Every relationship felt like a transaction. Every date, a negotiation. Every friend, a networking opportunity. Even his inner circle, his board, His advisor treated him more like a brand than a human being. Ethan met Sophia at a high-profile charity gala in LA. She was beautiful, articulate, and had dreams of breaking into film. Within months of dating Ethan, she'd landed a starring role, ironically, in a ValeNet-produced documentary about women in tech. Ethan didn't mind at first. He believed in helping her chase her dreams. But soon their dates were filled with rehearsed charm and subtle requests. Connections to agents, red carpet invites, access to his PR team. The love felt scripted. When he didn't fund her second film, she disappeared without a word. Isabel branded herself as a female founder and futurist. She used Ethan's name to boost her credibility, leveraged photos with him to gain hundreds of thousands of followers, and pitched startups at his private parties. She told him he was inspiring, but mostly she wanted in on his platform. When her startup failed and he declined to invest, she ended things and publicly hinted he was emotionally unavailable. Each relationship started with warmth and admiration, but ended in silence once the favors stopped. Derek, the college roommate turned CEO. Derek had once shared ramen and broken laptops with Ethan, but after ValeNet's success, Derek reappeared this time with a startup idea and a plea for investment. Ethan obliged, offering both funding and tech support. Years later, Derek's company IPO'd. He celebrated with new friends, VC partners, and media interviews. Ethan didn't even get a thank you call. Their friendship had become a business exchange, and Derek had gotten what he came for. Mila, the loyal friend. Mila was a constant in Ethan's life. She organized his parties, helped him screen dates, and always listened to his frustrations. But behind the scenes, she sold exclusive details to tabloids under an alias. Ethan only discovered it after a leak exposed a private family trip to the press. When confronted, Mila said, "I've always protected your image. Isn't that what matters?" The board members praised Ethan's genius in interviews, but in meetings, they saw him as a bottleneck. They wanted him to step down as CEO, to let the brand evolve without the baggage of personality. In reality, they wanted control over his company, his vision, even his calendar. One suggested, "We should outsource your public speaking. Your authenticity isn't scalable." His advisors and PR team managed his image like a product launch. Ethan wasn't allowed to post personal photos without clearance. He once wrote a heartfelt post about his mother. It was deleted within hours. "Too emotional," his media advisor said. "The brand needs to stay aspirational." He wasn't a man anymore. He was a symbol, a commodity, a headline generator. Every touch felt calculated, every compliment rehearsed, every embrace conditional. Behind the genius, the billions, and the polished keynote speeches was a man quietly aching to be seen, not studied, loved, not leveraged. Ethan Vale had given people wealth, fame, and opportunity, but what he yearned for in return was the one thing they never offered: genuine connection. His parents had passed years ago. No siblings, no one who really knew him. His father, James Vale. James was a quiet, strong man, a mechanic who loved two things deeply: classic cars and his son. He worked long hours, often with oil-stained hands and an aching back, but he always made time to ask Ethan how school went. He never said, "I love you," much, but he showed it every single day. One rainy evening, while driving home from the garage, James noticed a car stalled in the middle of a busy intersection. He pulled over to help, a habit ingrained in him. As he pushed the stalled car to safety, a delivery truck skidded on the wet road. The impact was instant. James died on the scene. Ethan was 19. He got the call during a college exam. He never finished it. His mother, Lorraine Vale. Lorraine was the warmth in their home, a librarian by profession, a dreamer at heart. After James passed, she became Ethan's emotional anchor, cheering him through Stanford, mailing him handwritten notes filled with hope and scripture, even when cancer began to dull her strength. She never told Ethan how advanced it was. "Focus on building the future," she said. "I'll be fine." By the time he returned home during a break, it was too late. She passed in her sleep, a worn-out novel resting on her chest. Ethan never really healed. He just worked. By the time Ethan turned 34, he had everything and no one. He knew he couldn't just leave. With media trackers, digital footprints, and facial recognition everywhere, he had to disappear smart. Here's how he did it. Burn the trail. Ethan quietly shut down all his personal social media profiles months before his disappearance, claiming a desire for brand refresh. He created multiple decoy internet sessions using randomized IP addresses across continents, making it seem like he was traveling in Europe, Asia, and the Caribbean simultaneously. He set up encrypted email addresses to communicate with one single confidant, a retired hacker named Elias, who once tried to breach VeilNet but was later hired by Ethan to head security. Ethan created shell corporations years in advance, quietly siphoned millions into offshore accounts, registered under aliases built using real, dormant identities from public death records, an old trick he'd learned researching data privacy. He sold off his private jet and luxury cars in one go, claiming they were being converted to NFTs for an art tech project. He lost 25 pounds through diet and daily stress, grew out a beard, then shaved it into a new, rugged cut, dyed his hair slightly lighter, added a subtle scar-like makeup mark near his eyebrow. Ethan Vale would never be recognized as Ethan Wells, the quiet boat mechanic. He even took acting classes for months under the guise of investing in immersive tech to learn how to mimic small-town dialects and blend into blue-collar culture. He disappeared during ValNet's Global Leadership Retreat, an annual 5-day event, on a private island where no phones were allowed and every executive was off-grid. He boarded the yacht as Ethan Vale, but he didn't come back. A body double attended the final 2 days, just enough to be seen in a crowd and blend in for the final group photo. The double was paid handsomely and vanished to Europe under witness protection measures arranged by Elias. He traveled at night using buses, not planes, wore cheap clothes, slept in motels without cameras, paid cash only. His final leg was done in a 10-year-old F-150 truck he bought from a widowed farmer outside Kansas for $3,000. He used no GPS, only paper maps and instinct. In Haven Bay, he introduced himself as Ethan Wells. No resume, no backstory, just a man looking to work with his hands after life kicked him around. No one in Haven Bay Googled him. They barely used email. Red, the boatyard owner, didn't ask questions, and Emily only asked one. "Are you staying long?" He smiled and said, "Long enough to feel human again." Ethan didn't run away because he hated his life. He ran because no one in it truly saw him. And in losing the world's richest man, the world got something more valuable in return. A man who finally chose life over legacy. So when his 34th birthday rolled around, Ethan didn't throw a party. He packed a bag and disappeared. He cut his beard, drove a 10-year-old truck, shaved off the billionaire, and left Ethan Vale behind. He became Ethan Wells, just a man with a wrench and a tired soul. He crossed state lines, burned through gas stations and motels, until he reached a dot on the map, Haven Bay, a sleepy coastal town where time moved slower and no one cared about stock prices or IPOs. In Haven Bay, he rented a small attic room above a bait shop. No Wi-Fi, no cameras, no judgment. He found work fixing boats for an old man named Raider, grizzled Vietnam vet who spoke in grunts and drank his coffee black as engine oil. Red didn't care who Ethan was. He cared that he could lift heavy things and didn't complain about splinters. Ethan had blisters. He smelled like salt and engine grease. And for the first time in years, he felt free. In Haven Bay, there was a local artist named Emily, gallery assistant. A woman who saw the world, not as it was, but as it could be. She spent mornings painting by the docks, lost in color and light. And she noticed Ethan right away. Not because he was handsome, though he was, but because he looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. She teased him for the way he held a hammer like someone who Googled it. He teased her back, saying her paintings were suspiciously good for someone still figuring things out. They became curious about each other. She told him about her dreamshow little brother, the parents she lost, the art show she could never afford to host. He told her half-truths, that he used to work in tech, that he burned out, but he wanted to live simply for a while. She respected that. She never pried. And he fell. Not fast, but deeply. But secrets have a shelf life. Emily's love for painting began in the quiet corners of her childhood, a world often filled with more silence than support. She grew up in a small, weather-worn house at the edge of Haven Bay, raised by a single mother who worked double shifts at the diner and still came home smiling. Life wasn't easy, but it was filled with small, beautiful moments. The smell of ocean salt through cracked windows, the sound of seagulls over a rusted tin roof, the way sunlight danced across the hardwood floor every morning. But it was in second grade during a stormy afternoon that everything changed. Her teacher, Mrs. Alden, had wheeled in a cart of old leftover art supplies, dried out watercolors, crinkled paper, brushes with bent bristles. Most of the kids groaned, but Emily's eyes lit up. That day, as rain tapped against the classroom windows, she painted her first picture, a lighthouse on a cliff, holding strong against crashing waves. Mrs. Alden had crouched beside her and whispered, "You see things differently, Emily. That's a gift. Don't ever stop painting." Emily never forgot those words. Painting became her language when words failed her. When she lost her mum to cancer at 13, it was the only thing that kept her grounded. She'd sit by the docks, sketching the waves, trying to capture emotions she couldn't explain. While other kids played sports or chased popularity, Emily chased light and shadows, brush in hand, searching for meaning in color. Art became her therapy, her rebellion, her prayer. But because money was always tight, she could never afford formal training or galleries. She worked small jobs, painted on scrap, donated her pieces to charity auctions just to be seen. Still, she never stopped. She didn't paint for fame. She painted to feel and to help others feel too. That's why Haven Bay mattered. That's why Ethan's support meant more than just a building. It was a childhood dream reborn. Because for Emily, painting didn't just save her life. It became her life. One summer afternoon, a group of tourists wandered into Haven Bay. One snapped a photo, a blurry image of Ethan carrying an anchor to the docks. The tweet read, "Is this billionaire Ethan Vale in hiding?" By morning, the photo was viral. By noon, Haven Bay was under siege. Cameras, reporters, drones, helicopters. And at the center of the storm stood Emily. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She looked at him and simply asked, "Why didn't you trust me?" Ethan had no answer, only shame. He left that night, again. This time he left to face the truth. Days later, he stood behind a podium in New York City. No script, no PR team, just a man with a mic and a conscience. He told the world about Haven Bay, about the weight of wealth, about the girl with paint-stained hands who reminded him he was human. Then he did something no billionaire had done before. He pledged 90% of his fortune to a global fund for community art, education, and mental health. The first recipient? A new gallery in Haven Bay. Emily's gallery opened under a sky painted in orange and gold. Locals filled the space. Her work finally had a home. And then, he walked in. No tux, no cameras. Just Ethan, holding a single daisy. "I lied," he said. "I was scared, but I'm not anymore. I don't want to impress you, I want to grow with you, if you'll let me." She didn't speak right away, but her smile said everything. Today, Ethan and Emily live in Haven Bay. He still works the docks. She teaches art to kids at the gallery. They don't have a mansion, but they have a porch swing, a shared sketchbook, and peace. Sometimes, you have to walk away from everything you built to discover what you were really meant to build. Not a company, not a fortune, but a life worth living. Because true wealth is knowing someone loves you for who you are, not what you own. In the end, Ethan Vale didn't just rewrite the rules of technology, rewrote the definition of success. He walked away from billion-dollar boardrooms to fix broken boats, from endless applause to find a single honest smile, from being admired by millions to being loved by one. Because at the core of every human being, billionaire or notice, a yearning to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved without condition. And sometimes, you have to lose the world to finally find yourself. Always remember, success means nothing without inner peace. You can have all the money, fame, and influence in the world, but if you can't sleep at night or trust the people around you, what have you really gained? True love isn't bought, it's built. Real connection can't be bought or negotiated. It's found in vulnerability, honesty, and shared moments, not luxury or status. Genuine impact outlasts wealth. Ethan's lasting legacy wasn't veil-netted, was the lives he transformed through empathy, mentorship, and service. Give where it counts, not where it's seen. Isolation isn't always solitude. Being alone can be healing, but being surrounded by people who only see your title, that's a lonelier prison. Seek those who value your soul, not your resume. Courage is in taking off the mask. The bravest thing Ethan did wasn't building an empire, it was walking away from it to live his truth. Sometimes, the hardest step is the most human one, being real. So, ask yourself, what are you building? And more importantly, who are you becoming? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and challenge the soul. And as always, stay human and hit the bell icon for more original tales just like this. What would you do in Ethan's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the richest hearts wear the poorest clothes.